We've long sensed that our history is full of deception. But what if religion itself was designed to conceal the truth that we are not alone and never have been? Across millennia, deep religious beliefs have steered humanity away from an unsettling truth. Historical records, eyewitness accounts, and compelling research like that of A.R. Bordon reveal a startling reality. Humanity was engineered by extraterrestrial beings, the Anunnaki, and we are guests on this planet. Beneath our feet, in vast cavern systems, live civilizations older than humanity itself, possibly Earth's original inhabitants.
Conventional wisdom suggests that the Earth is essentially a solid spherical mass, with an inner core of solid iron encased in a layer of molten iron, followed by stiffer mantle and the crust, before heading to the surface on which we all live. However, although this theory is almost universally accepted as absolute fact, it is only an educated guess, with no solid proof to back it up. The fact is that we have never been anywhere near to the center of the Earth. So, with that in mind, theories that state the Earth is in fact hollow and even able to support life should be treated the same way as the widely accepted aforementioned theory. As you might suspect though, most scoff at this notion and dismiss it entirely without any further investigation. However, throughout history, many prominent and respected minds, thinkers, and even military veterans have presented detailed theories as to what lies deep within our planet. When these theories are combined with the numerous reports and texts that make reference to living beings and entire civilizations that live and sometimes come up from inside the Earth, not only appear to warrant further study, but when viewed with an unbiased mind, suggest there may be more evidence to support the hollow Earth theory than not. Both sides of the spectrum seem to agree that the moment of inertia of the Earth indicates that there's a concentration of mass around the very center of the planet, with further research along with seismic data appearing to show that this mass to be a solid sphere. Hollow Earth theories vary on exactly what the mass is, with some stating that it could be a magnetic core, while others suggest that it is a central sun. This is particularly interesting as modern science seems to suggest that the center of the Earth could indeed be as hot as our sun. In ancient times, Buddhists believed that the Earth was hollow and that it housed a race of supermen and women who would venture to the surface via tunnels. Buddhists even kept guards at the entrances to these tunnels to the inner Earth, said to be in Tibet. In other Tibetan, Indian, and Hindu texts, an ancient kingdom called Shambhala is described, said to be located deep within Inner Asia, while other texts from India, such as the Ramayana, speak of the Avatar Rama, a great blue being from deep within the earth. In the 1600s, as Western cultures were beginning to come out of the Dark Ages, where science and free thought was frowned upon by the Catholic Church, many scientists and philosophers murdered by the Church as heretics, there were prominent and influential figures who had come to their own conclusions about the Earth and if it was hollow or not. It should also perhaps be noted that although these thinkers were no longer forced to operate in secrecy under the threat of death, they were still kept a very close eye on by society's elites. Edmund Halley, perhaps best known for his discovery of Halley's Comet, was just one who theorized that the Earth was indeed hollow during this time. Using much of Isaac Newton's work on gravity to prove his theories, he claimed that the Earth was hollow and had a shell around 500 miles thick, had an innermost core, and was capable of supporting life. He went on to state that an atmosphere filled the space inside the Earth and that the outer shell and the inner core both had their own magnetic poles that caused them to rotate at different speeds. Leonhard Euler, a Swiss physicist, also proposed that the Earth was hollow during his time in the 1700s. Like Halley, he claimed that the Earth had a very thick outer shell, but at its core was a central sun. The sun, he claimed, provided heat and light for the inhabitants of the inner Earth. Interestingly, Euler went on to claim that the inner Earth could be accessed through huge entrances both at the North and South poles. It's claimed by some people today that such applications as Google Earth have purposely attempted to hide these entrances, although there are some photographs that appear to show the opening that Euler claimed. As recently as the 1940s, there have been claims of an inhabited inner world, perhaps none more high-profile than those made by Admiral Richard Byrd following Operation High Jump in 1947. Operation High Jump was a multinational effort led by the United States to establish a base at the North Pole. On the 19th of February 1947, Admiral Byrd led a squadron of planes over the North Pole. He claimed that he could see vegetation and animals that shouldn't have been there, and ultimately that he saw a huge opening that led inside the Earth. However, perhaps even stranger, Byrd stated that out of nowhere there were strange flying crafts that got so close to them that they could see what looked like very similar to swastika markings on them. His airplane would not respond, and he was essentially in an invisible vice grip of some kind. Byrd went on to say that he was taken inside the Earth where he noticed great lakes and vegetation, and that the inner Earth had an inner sun. He was greeted by the beings that resided there. They were, he claimed, concerned about humans in general, but particularly about nuclear weapons that were building up around the planet. Interestingly, there have been numerous UFO sightings in and around both nuclear power plants and on grounds where nuclear weapons are housed. It may be worth noting that there have been long rumors that Hitler himself had a keen interest in establishing a base at the North Pole, with the objective being to find the entrance to the inner world, believing that extraterrestrials or an advanced race would be found there. On the 5th of May 1947, the El Mercurio newspaper of Santiago, Chile, appeared with a headline article "On Board the Mount Olympus on the High Seas," in which it quoted Byrd saying, "Admiral Byrd declared today that it was imperative for the United States to initiate immediate defense measures against hostile regions." Furthermore, Byrd stated that he didn't want to frighten anyone unduly, but it was a bitter reality that in the case of a new war, the continental United States would be attacked by flying objects which could fly from pole to pole at incredible speeds. Like Euler 200 years earlier, he also claimed that there were huge entrances to the inner Earth at both the North and South poles. He repeated these views several times, including at a press conference in front of the world's media, before he was hospitalized and ultimately forbidden from holding press conferences on the subject again. Byrd died in his sleep in 1957, maybe predictably, maybe not. There were quiet claims of foul play, although his official cause of death was a heart ailment. Perhaps also worth checking out is Byrd's son, Richard Byrd Jr., who was 6 years old in 1947 and had accompanied and witnessed his father's claims. He was found dead mysteriously in a New York warehouse and had, by all accounts, had various trying times during his life. Perhaps the most interesting of all the Hollow Earth claims are those made by the Native American Hopi tribe, who have lived upon the plains of northern Arizona for thousands of years. According to their ancient writings, it was here that their gods instructed them to settle and build up villages in the rock, which look very similar to modern apartment blocks. Here, they were taught to grow corn, beans, and squash, and thrived as a civilization. Key to the Hopi's existence was the Ant People, who had guided their tribe safely during two cataclysmic events. In the first world, which was destroyed by fire, and the second world, which was destroyed by ice, the tribe had each time been guided by a strange cloud during the day and a moving star during the night until they came to the god-named Satu Knang, who in turn led the Hopi to the Ant People. The Ant People had lived on Earth since the first time and now housed themselves deep within the planet. They offered the Hopis safety until it was safe to return to the surface of the Earth, and also taught them skills such as food storage, rationing, and how to sprout beans inside the cavern under the ground. Not only is this another reference to the Hollow Earth theory, but it also lends a certain amount of support to the ancient astronaut theory and the Anunnaki. The Hopi word for ant is Anu. Anu was a Babylonian sky god, the Anunnaki. Not only this, but Naki in Hopi means friend. Ant friend, Anunnaki. Coincidence or evidence? We should perhaps stress that not everyone agrees with that interpretation. Is the Earth spherical? Well, no, it's geoid, really, which means Earth form. Because it's not a sphere, and because it's somewhat flattened at the poles, we also have oceans, mountains, plains, and other geographical features that give it a unique shape, which is called a geoid. But it turns out that there is certain data and some stories that give us the idea of a hollow Earth. That is, a land that is like a ball that has air in the middle, that is, a shell of hundreds of kilometers thick but hollow in the center. Here we will tell one of the most amazing stories about the hollow Earth. Richard E. Byrd, pilot of the US Navy, flew over the poles, both the Arctic and the Antarctic. With a small Fokker monoplane, he flew over the Arctic, passing through Greenland, Kings Bay, now Ny-Ålesund, and Spitsbergen, Svalbard, reaching the North Pole. As for the South Pole, in 1928 he set up a camp based on the northern tip of Roosevelt Island in the Ross Sea, with laboratories, workshops, warehouses, a radio station, and a hospital. This base was the Byrd Camp and his crew of 42 people for 14 months. At last, on November the 29th, 1929, he flew over the South Pole. This expedition and 3 others in 1934, 1939 and 1955 made Byrd a well-known explorer of Antarctica. But here we're going to focus on something that Byrd never spoke about in public, about what happened to him on one of his trips to the poles, but we know from third parties that he found the entrance to the interior of the Earth. Here we have access to his flight log about what happened on February the 19th, 1947. This would be an unofficial expedition, that's why it wasn't previously named. From his blog, we can read the following. I am not at liberty to disclose the following documentation in this writing. It may never see the light of public scrutiny, but I must do my duty and record here so that everyone can read it someday. We're going to avoid log entries that talk about routine issues, and we'll go directly to the substance. So registration begins at 0600 hours, 6 in the morning. 0900 hours, vast ice and snow below, yellowish coloration of nature is observed and dispersed in a linear pattern. Altering the course to better examine this color pattern below, reddish or purple is also observed. Circulating this area in 2 full turns, returning to the direction assigned by the compass, checking position again with the base camp, and transmitting information about colorations in the ice and the snow below. 0910 hours, both magnetic and gyro compasses beginning to gyrate and wobble. We're unable to hold our heading by instrumentation. Take bearing with sun compass, yet all seems well. The controls are seemingly slow to respond and have sluggish quality, but there's no indication of icing. 0915 hours. In the distance is what appears to be mountains. It's no illusion. There are mountains consisting of a small range that I've never seen before. 0955 hours. Altitude change to 2,950 feet, encountering strong turbulence again. 1000 hours. We are crossing over a small mountain range and still proceeding northwards as best as can be ascertained. Beyond the mountain range is what appears to be a valley with a small river or stream running through the center portion. There should be no green valley below. Something is definitely wrong and abnormal here. We should be over ice and snow. To the port side are great forests growing on the mountain slopes. Our navigation instruments are still spinning, the gyroscope is oscillating back and forth. 10:05 hours. I alter altitude to 1400 feet, and execute a sharp left turn to better examine the valley below. It is green with either moss or a type of tight-knit grass. The light here seems different. I cannot see the sun anymore. We make another left turn and we spot what seems to be a large animal of some kind below us. It appears to be an elephant. No, it looks more like a mammoth. This is incredible, yet there it is. Decrease altitude to 1,000 feet and take binoculars to better examine the animal. It is confirmed. It is definitely a mammoth-like animal. Report this to base camp. 10:30 hours. Encountering more rolling green hills now. The external temperature indicator reads 74 degrees Fahrenheit. Continuing on our heading now. Navigation instruments seem normal now. I'm puzzled over their actions. Attempt to contact base camp. Radio is not functioning. 11:30 hours. Countryside below is more level and normal, if I may use that word. Ahead we spot what seems to be a city. This is impossible. Aircraft seem light and oddly buoyant. The controls refuse to respond. My God, off our port and starboard wings are a strange type of aircraft. They're closing rapidly alongside. They're disc-shaped and have a radiant quality to them. They're close enough now to see the markings on them. It's a type of swastika. This is fantastic. Where are we? What has happened? I tug at the controls again. They will not respond. We're caught in an invisible vice grip of some type. 11:35 hours. Our radio crackles and a voice comes through in English with what perhaps is a slight Nordic or Germanic accent. The message is, "Welcome, Admiral, to our domain. We shall land you in exactly 7 minutes. Relax, Admiral, you are in good hands." I note the engines of our planes have stopped running, but the aircraft is under some strange control and is now turning itself. The controls are useless. 11:40 hours. Another radio message received. We begin the landing process now, and in moments the plane shudders slightly and begins a descent as though caught in some great unseen elevator. The downward motion is negligible and we touch down only with a slight jolt. 11:45 hours. I'm making a hasty last entry in the flight log. Several men are approaching on foot towards our aircraft. They're tall with blonde hair.
Hey everyone, I'm Carrie Cassidy from Project Camelot, and I am here today with a very fascinating man, former military, if I understand it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. The story you've got to tell is quite extraordinary, okay? And I would like you to first give us a little bit about your background. So your military ranks that you reached, for example, and what you primarily did in the military.
I am a retired E7, which is Master Sergeant. But at the time of the incident, I was a E6, Tech Sergeant.
A tech sergeant.
Yes.
Okay. And you're not in the military at this time,
No.
but you had clearances, I assume.
Yes, I had Top Secret, SpeedCat, what we call TK and TG, Tango Kilo, Tango Gamma, and other accesses to different types of projects.
And how long ago was this, that this incident happened?
It was from August 1983 to 1984.
That's when this incident happened? Why don't you just tell us what happened and describe who you were with and the craft you were on at the time?
Well, we were basically in like a Cessna. I had made friends with the Icelandic civil aviation personnel. One was the mechanic of the aircraft, basically, and of the air traffic control systems within the tower. The other was actually a pilot, and he flew. And on the weekends, I would go visit them, and I was in civilian attire, not in my military thing, because they asked me not to. I did not know why until this incident took place. So we were putting in over-the-horizon radar stations on Equerry, the island north of Iceland that belonged to them. And supposedly we were going to visit that site or overfly and take pictures. Well, much to my surprise, we continued on. Civil Aviation Division for Iceland.
So let's be
He
careful.
may not still be alive, but he could be.
All right. So then what happened?
Well, we kept flying north. And of course, if you better know about the poles, they can be very cloudy. So we were in clouds, and all of a sudden, we dropped into the clearing. And it was nice and bright, sunny, and the skies were blue. But off in the distance, you could still see what looked like a ball of light or sun type thing. And of course, I was kind of disoriented, but he kept talking to me and reassuring me that everything was okay. And then as we flew, it got greener instead of less ice than there was before. And as we flew further south, I saw, still on the edges of the permafrost and the greenery that was showing up, mastodons, alive, not skeletons, but mastodons. And saw some other things, I think they call muskox and all that went with that period. And then as we flew further south, I actually saw some dinosaurs. Brontosaurus comes to mind, a T-Rex, a Allosaurus, the one with the blades on its back, I believe. And then, I was just amazed. I was blown away because all my life I had kind of studied these things. And what brought...
Can you tell us anything else you saw?
Well, I saw one thing they did surprise me was some silvery disc met us as we were flying in.
Oh, right.
I noticed them. I said, what's going on in myself? And they escorted us to the place where we landed.
Wow.
And we got out, and he introduced me to these people. The females were 8 to 10 feet tall on average, and the males are 10, 12, maybe 14 foot tall. And that was more or less average. There was varying heights.
Wow.
That was on average. And they greeted us, and I forget the name he called him, because it was in Icelandic, which I wasn't very good at.
All right.
I barely can speak English, much less some other foreign language. And so we proceeded and with introductions and everything, and they offered to feed us, in which they did, and sat us down, and we had a nice little meal with them. And with the plates, because of their size, the plates were more or less the size of what we would call a good platter. But the
So
turkey,
show me with your hands like you did before.
probably about that,
All right.
whereas ours were, more or less.
Right. So what were they wearing, for example?
Very modest, because they didn't think anything of...
But were they wearing clothes like we wear?
I would say it's kind of like, the closest analogy I could get was something like, it's one-piece suit, kind of like Star Wars or Star Trek.
Okay.
You know how they had the one...
Right. And did these look human faces
Oh,
and
yes,
hair
yeah,
and all that?
Human, just bigger.
Just bigger.
Yes.
Okay.
They were blondish,
Okay.
by the way, kind of Nordic.
Okay. And was it male and female?
Yes.
In 1999, an alleged transcript surfaced online from a being who identified herself as Lacerta, a reptilian humanoid. Her words were not hostile, but revealing. She claimed her kind had lived on Earth long before humans arrived, evolving beneath the surface of the planet in vast subterranean habitats. Lacerta dismissed the idea that her race was demonic or evil. Instead, she suggested that many of the myths and religious narratives that portray reptilian figures as symbols of sin were misinterpretations, deliberate distortions, perhaps to sow division between surface and inner Earth beings. She described our species as young, impulsive, and manipulated by our own systems of belief. More importantly, Lacerta emphasized that while her people are watching, they are not looking to conquer. Instead, they seek to be understood and to eventually re-establish a form of open communication with humanity. Interestingly, the idea that humans might not be the original inhabitants of Earth finds substantial backing from researchers and contactees like A.R. Bordon. In his extensive work, The Link, Bordon highlights humanity's engineered origin by beings known as the Anunnaki, who came to Earth seeking gold to shield their planet from harmful radiation. This intervention suggests we were introduced or manipulated into existence, further supporting the concept that we are not Earth's original inhabitants, but rather guests, or even engineered visitors, on this planet. The human race, Homo sapiens sapiens, was the genetically engineered product. The Anunnaki workers were sent to extract gold from Earth's oceans and later African mines. They created a worker race intelligent enough to be self-administering, but not so intelligent as to become a challenge to Anunnaki directives. Radu Cinema's revelations in Transylvanian Sunrise speak of vast and highly advanced cave systems hidden beneath the Bucegi Mountains, sealed chambers holding technology and knowledge not of our time. These findings, once dismissed as fantasy, now echo eerily with testimonies we've heard from across the globe and across generations, from Admiral Byrd's flight log to Hendrix B's encounter and the Lacerta Files. These stories, decades apart, align with astonishing consistency. They speak of lush inner worlds, sentient civilizations, and an ancient history purposefully erased from human memory. What if these so-called myths of a hollow Earth are merely misunderstood glimpses into a vast subterranean realm, a sprawling network of caverns and domains that have always been here beneath our feet, yet hidden in plain sight? And what if A.R. Bordon was right, that humanity was placed here, engineered by external beings for a purpose we no longer remember? Could we be the visitors, living on a planet that never truly belonged to us? It's time we stop calling these accounts fantasy and start asking, why were we never meant to know? What else lies beneath the surface? What truths are we still being protected from or distracted from seeing? And perhaps most importantly, if we are not the original inhabitants, what responsibility do we now carry as the current stewards of this world?